Sometimes life changes without making a sound. Elias never imagined that one morning he would leave his home carrying only a small suitcase. The care center was clean, quiet, peaceful. The nurses welcomed him with kind smiles. His room had a comfortable bed, a small bookshelf, and a window overlooking a quiet garden. Everything was exactly as it should be. Yet nothing felt like home. That first night he unpacked his clothes with slow hands. On the bedside table, he carefully placed the only photograph he had brought, a picture of his wife. He looked at it for a long time. Then he whispered almost too softly to hear, "I never thought I would grow old without you." Outside, the wind gently moved the trees. Inside the room, silence answered him. The next morning, Elias woke before sunrise. Old habits never truly disappear. He quietly walked into the garden. The air was cool, fresh, peaceful. Several elderly people were already there. Some sat alone watching the birds. Others slowly walked along the narrow paths. No one seemed to be in a hurry. An old man smiled as Elias passed. "First day?" he asked gently. Elias nodded. "You'll get used to it. Most of us do." They sat together on a wooden bench. For a while neither of them spoke. Finally the old man broke the silence. "My children live overseas. They call every Sunday. They always ask if I'm comfortable." He smiled, but his eyes quietly filled with sadness. "No one," he whispered, "ever asks if I'm lonely." Elias lowered his eyes. A woman nearby gently fed a few small birds. She spoke without looking up. "My family visits every month. They bring flowers and beautiful gifts. Then they leave. The flowers stay longer than they do." No one laughed. No one needed to, because everyone understood. At that moment, Elias realized something he had never imagined. He wasn't the only one carrying invisible pain. Every face in that quiet garden was hiding a story that someone had forgotten to ask about. That afternoon, Elias returned to his room. He opened the small suitcase he had brought from home. There wasn't much inside. A few clothes, a family photograph, and one worn leather folder. Carefully, he placed it on the table. Inside were pages he had written many years ago. Poems, stories, thoughts that had never been published. Elias smiled sadly. "Perhaps," he whispered, "they'll disappear with me." Just then someone knocked softly on the open door. It was a young nurse. "Mr. Elias," she said kindly, "would you read something for us tonight?" Elias looked up surprised. "Read?" The nurse smiled. "Some of the residents can't sleep. They love listening to stories." Elias remained silent. No one had asked to hear his words in years. That evening he opened the old folder. His hands trembled slightly. The room became completely quiet. And for the first time in a very long time, Elias began to read. Not because he wanted to be remembered, but because someone had finally wanted to listen. As the story ended, no one spoke. The room remained perfectly still. Some quietly wiped away a tear. Others simply smiled. Not because the story was sad, but because it reminded them that they were still alive, still able to feel, still able to remember. When Elias closed the old folder, something inside him had changed. For years he believed his words no longer mattered. Yet that evening, he discovered they had simply been waiting for the right hearts to hear them. The following afternoon his son arrived. He stood quietly at the doorway. Before he could speak, one of the residents smiled and said, "Your father has a gift. Every evening, he brings this room back to life." The son looked at Elias. For the first time in many years, he didn't see an old man who needed to be cared for. He saw the man who had once filled his childhood with stories. The man whose quiet love had shaped his life. His eyes slowly filled with regret. "Dad," he whispered. "I'm sorry." Elias smiled, the same gentle smile he had always worn. He placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "Life," he said softly, "moves too quickly. Don't spend so much time running that you forget the people who once taught you how to walk." Outside, the evening sun slowly disappeared beyond the trees. Inside, peace quietly returned. Because home is not always the place where you live. Sometimes home is simply the place where someone still listens to your story. And perhaps tonight, if someone you love is still waiting for your voice, don't wait until tomorrow. Some conversations become priceless only after they are no longer possible. Thank you for sharing this journey.